And you got all those guys that are out. Guys that were out, and that is one thing that that was kind of one of the hindrance there for the spring game yesterday. So with that, you ended up with basically Zakondre White out there, and Zakondre looked like an absolute star. You know, Harrison Lloyd didn't play, so he picks up the pace. And he had a 22-yard run early, scored the first touchdown of the game. Some physical running there on the goal line. And with that, it makes you think, do we have like a three-headed monster at quarterback? At running back. Coach Beamer said, I would say Z has taken advantage of this spring unlike any other. He's had a great spring. He's a playmaker, and I don't know what his issues were here in the past. The kid's a heck of a football player, and the energy that he brings to each and every day, to every meeting, every practice, every workout, every rep. He doesn't have bad days, and every rep is a meaningful rep. That's the mentality we need on this team. What does that tell you? I haven't seen enough of Coach Beamer to make any crazy assumptions, but if you take that at face value, Zakondre White's going to have an opportunity to play a little football this fall. Maybe there will be the whole three-headed monster thing, and I don't know if that's going to work out well for, say, Kevin Harris, because Kevin Harris is the kind of running back that needs a bunch of carries to make it go. You know what I mean? So you've got that going for you there on that front. Is Luke Doty really going to be your quarterback? Now, I know that that Coach Beamer was all about him yesterday, and you kind of expect that. But Doty, they only played, by the way, a half of football. And it was basically, it was a glorified practice for the most part. Doty was 5 for 7 passing, 54 yards. He did throw an interception, but that was called back because of some pass interference type stuff. Jason Brown was 3 for 5 for 47 yards. So with that, I think there's still a section of people that believe that Doty can't throw the ball down the field. And if you look at last season's games, and I went back and looked at some of that stuff, and he had like one long completion in the 3 games that he started. Everything else was a lot of check down routes and things like that. So as far as being able to move the ball down the field through the air, I don't know if Luke Doty can do it or not. I don't know. So that's going to be kind of one of the interesting things there. You know, I did say, I was thinking about this yesterday. When Jason Brown threw the ball, it looked like the ball came out of his hands with pop. And he looked like he can make decisions and just throw it. I don't know how he did the rest of practice. You know, Coach Beamer said Doty made the throws at practice. It's his team. He's got to go what he's got to go with. Who are going to be the other guys on the offensive side of the ball that are going to make plays? E.J. Jenkins, the big mammoth 6'7", 242 guy who transferred in from St. Francis, ended up catching a touchdown pass. Jaheem Bell was a young man that played some running back, even though he's played tight end. He did say that, hey, he told the coaches, I'm an athlete. I just want to play. That's kind of the mentality you need when you've got a lot of holes in your depth chart. You want to fill some spots. You got a guy that can play different spots. That's a good thing. So there's that. But who's going to be that guy? DeCarrion Joyner he won like all these awards for this and that being the best of the spring. You know, I don't know how many balls are going to get thrown around anyway this coming season. But here's my thing though. He has to be the guy. It's him and Smith. And you can go with Muse too at tight end. Some comments online. Tom says Beamer put out a vanilla offense, not surprised. There weren't the biggest down the field plays, saving it for week 1. EJ Jenkins will be nice. Him and Dak will be a great combo. Brock says he told me that Jaheem Bell would be someone to look out for. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And finally, watching this game was completely different than watching the last spring game with Will Muschamp. It just seems like the team, like they want to be there. There's a level of enthusiasm that's there. It wasn't like, oh, man, we got to play. That's kind of the vibe you got from some of it. But this Gamecock team looks like they want to be there. So there's that. And Shane Beamer, doing little things like Mike Yuva tweeted out the picture of him. He's waving up to the box upstairs. Yeah, what was he doing? He was waving at his kids. Things like that make you look like you're the absolute. I mean, it's a great thing, and people latch on to that. Tom was saying no injuries. They did have the one injury that we did talk about with R.J. Roderick, who went to the locker room on crutches. So I think he's going to be fine, though. So with that kind of wraps up the South Carolina spring game. Doty was named the quarterback heading into the summer. And you wonder how much of a hold he has on that. And I guess it's because in the 3 games that he had last season, he didn't really throw the ball much down the field. Now, you can make the argument that he was in that Mike Bobo offense, and Bobo was like, we're going to run the ball, and that's what we're good at. So it could have a lot to do with that, too. But you know what? Going into this season, especially after you see the stuff that we've gotten from Zacondre White, the Gamecocks legitimately, and we still haven't seen Marshawn Lloyd yet, but we know what we have with Kevin Harris. So there's that. I think they've got 3 really, really, really good options at running back, just based on the assumption of how good Marshawn Lloyd's going to be. Tom wants my mock draft. Things are moving around so much. I do have my top 100 players that I worked with Tyler Crowder on this, and I'll give you some of these. These are interesting. My top 100 players, I'll give you some of these before we go to a break, and then I've got my post-spring top 20, my post-spring SEC rankings. But number 1 for me, as far as overall, Trevor Lawrence at Clemson. Kyle Pitts is the number 2. Number 3 is Zach Wilson. Number 4 is Penei Sewell. Number 5 is Jamar Chase. I like Patrick Surtain at 6. Justin Fields is at 7. Micah Parsons is at 8. Devontae Smith's at 9. And Jalen Waddle's at 10. I've got J.C. Horn ranked 13th overall, meaning I think he's going to go to the Eagles, but we shall see on that. He did ask what quarterback is coming to Foxborough. There was a segment on the NFL Network. I actually pulled a piece of this, and it's funny. Tom should mention that. I'll play this for you right now. And it talked about the Patriots may be moving up in the draft
The Patriots have been calling around in the top 10, and teams that have gotten those calls believe that their target would be Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields. Now, it would cost the Patriots a lot to move from 15 up to 7 or 8, probably something in the region of a second-round draft pick. That is a small price to pay if New England sees an opportunity to land a potential franchise quarterback, okay?
I don't know if they're really buying the, hey, we're in the camp of Cam Newton's the quarterback of the future, because Cam Newton's getting older. But Justin Fields has kind of fell off of some people's boards simply because of, I don't know. The guy was like right in line with Trevor Lawrence, and he was supposed to be the guy that's like right there. Now, things didn't work out for him at Georgia. He went to Ohio State, though, was a team leader there and played good football, but apparently I don't get the whole thing of how certain people are liking Mac Jones above Justin Fields. You know, a lot of people like Zach Wilson too, but you know, if I had to pick, I have Wilson ranked higher, but I might drop him below Justin Fields. I think it's Trevor Lawrence and then Justin Fields right after that. And I think a lot of these folks that if they're going to pick Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones is a career backup in the NFL. That's just my opinion. Just my opinion. He had all kinds of tools and toys and everything else to play with at Alabama. Great offensive line. I mean, you know, you're not going to have all that in the NFL. So I think that me personally, when I step back and look at it, I don't know why everybody is so high on Mac Jones, especially over Justin Fields. Rob says the scouts stated Mac Jones was the most NFL-ready style quarterback. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. I watched his pro day workout, and I watched Bill Belichick just kind of frown. I remember that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. We shall see. Brock with a quote online. I don't think Doty was completely bad. He went 5 for 7. I think the terrible starting drill, the large amount of running plays, the poor play of Gauthier, and the good play of Jason made Doty look bad. Not to mention the lack of healthy players. SEC Dog says he thinks Kyle Trask, will be a better NFL quarterback than Mac Jones. Hey, you know, I'm just in the camp of, why did everybody just all of a sudden turn against Justin Fields? Did Justin Fields do something that I missed? I watched him go one-on-one with the number one quarterback in the country in Trevor Lawrence, and he outdueled him in the college football playoff. Made big plays, made throws, did all kind of stuff. I'm just saying, I don't know what happened there. Now, if Mac Jones goes in there and does well, I'll be the first one to come out and say, hey, I kind of messed up on that. But for me, I just don't understand how Justin Fields has fallen off so much. But it's interesting. If the Patriots can move up and get him, that's going to be an interesting set there too, because you know Belichick wants to get another quarterback. So there's that. I've also got another interesting thing in here about Justin Fields that we'll talk about later on, where a franchise quarterback right now may be on the trading block to get Justin Fields. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. I've got my post-spring top 25, my post-spring SEC rankings with a note on each team. I wrote that up, and we'll have that for you after the break. Feel free to give us a call at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. We can also talk about the college football playoff. Is it going to expand? We talked a little bit about it on Friday, but we didn't really get into it much. Do you want it to expand? Do you want it to go to 6 teams, 8 teams, 12 teams, 16 teams? Which way do you want it to go? We'll take calls on that as well. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Right here on The Rundown. Of course, you're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. We are around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Podcasts for this show go up every day at 5 o'clock, so you can listen there. Before me is Teddy Hefner in the morning. He's on from 9 to noon. Lawton Swan with Clemson Sports Talk follows me. So be sure to check him out. He's on from 4 to 6. My name is Rob Sanders. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. I will be right back here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Let me grab my paperwork. I'll be right back. I hold in my hands you guys will be proud of me on this. I actually wrote this up earlier. This is my post-spring SEC rankings. I got notes on every team. And the West was harder to pick than the East. I went back and looked at it, and I'm like, I put that team there? What is wrong with me? I was kind of shocked with how I ended up on that. Kind of funny, right? That West, though, you can make an argument. That West is tough, man. I mean, you've got Alabama up top, and then Texas A&M and LSU and Arkansas and Auburn and the two Mississippi schools. That is a tough, tough division over there, man. Absolutely brutal. I agree. I don't understand why everybody's in love with Mac Jones. I don't get it. Stop with that nonsense, Tom. You don't play. A&M's not great every year, so stop with that ridiculousness. You don't play Alabama every year. You don't play LSU every year. Stop trying to. God, Tom. Generally, you're a smart guy. Then you say stuff like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I didn't go that far, Nick. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I hold in my hands, ladies and gentlemen, my post-spring SEC rankings. We will start in the East. Leading the way is the Georgia Bulldogs. This should be the end-all, be-all season for Georgia, period. I mean, they even got a backup defensive coordinator in Will Muschamp. Now, I know that Kirby Smart says, oh, he's here to analyze us, and I know that. But the reality is that he's there to help the defense. I mean, let's just be honest. The entire season hinges on the Clemson game. Can they come out of the hinge quick, or can they come out quick and win that Clemson game and then go from there? This isn't a year where they have to play a bunch of the West teams. I mean, you know, it's not, they've got to play Auburn, but Auburn's not absolutely the best in the world. And the rest of it is just, I mean, the East is just a long way down. Florida's right there with them, but I think they beat Florida this year. I really do. Florida, by the way, is second. You know, Emory, the quarterback, is it Emory? Emory, I've got his name somewhere else. It's not a question of who's going to play quarterback for them, but Todd Grantham. Todd Grantham's the guy that since he changes coaching jobs like every 3 years. It's his fourth year at Florida. Will they be able to keep Georgia behind them? They won last year. You know, Georgia, if they had JT Daniel, Emory Jones, thank you, Brock. If they had JT Daniels playing that game, I think Georgia beats Florida. I really, really do. So that's the big thing with Grantham is can he get that defense correct? I've got Mizzou at third. You know, they've got Steve Wilkes, who coached in the NFL. He's got to turn around a defense that gave up 40 points or more 5 times last season, and they averaged giving up 32 points a game. I like Connor Badazalak. Man, these names are killing me this year. I think that their offense is going to be fine. So Mizzou, I think, will finish third in the East. Kentucky, here's the big thing with them. Joey Gatewood, he played really well in the spring game. He's got to get over the fact that he could not be a better quarterback than Terry Wilson was last year, because Terry Wilson was not very good. And you were behind him, at least in the eyes of the coaches. And after that, before that, you kind of, failed your way out of Auburn. So he's got to overcome all of that and hopefully for the Wildcat fans, give the offense something resembling some sort of passing game so that they can run the ball like Coach Stoops wants to, and they can lean on that defense. But I've got Kentucky finishing behind Mizzou. Then I've got South Carolina. Yes, the secondary is key for South Carolina, in my opinion, this season. And will Luke Doty be able to throw the ball downfield? Because guess what? All of this talk that we're talking about now, we think he can do it, and Coach Beamer says he can do it, and all of that. That's great. But if you can't do it in September, and Eastern Illinois is not going to be the problem, all right? You can go into the Eastern Illinois game and run Kevin Harris to death and give Kevin Harris 25 carries, and you're going to win by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. Put up your number, okay? It's going to be against East Carolina, which is a step up. And if they're going to have the mentality of we're going to stuff the box and make Luke Doty beat us, if Luke Doty can't do that, South Carolina is going to have problems. They really are going to have problems. Behind South Carolina, I've got Tennessee. I think their defense is going to be the absolute worst in the conference. I watched some of their spring game. Oof. Expect a lot of shootouts with Tennessee. I think that's going to happen. They had 9 plays on offense of 20 yards plus or more through the air in their spring game. Now, I know it's the spring game. I get it. But the reality is that when that happens, you've got some guys that I think on offense they'll be okay. But I think that they're going to be like a turnstile, man. It's going to be up and down the field, almost like arena-like football with everybody from Tennessee this year. And Vanderbilt rounding them out. It's hard to pick the Commodores to go any higher. I do like their quarterback, Ken Seals. Can he lead them to a respectable season? They've got, I think they've got Stanford, and they got some non-conference games that they could have the potential to win. But can they be respectable? Simple as that. Now, if Vanderbilt, what I mean by respectable is that if they do pretty well in the non-conference and they beat Tennessee and they beat South Carolina. South Carolina is like Vanderbilt's Super Bowl. I'm not saying that South Carolina is going to lose to them. I'm just saying that right now, if Vanderbilt was going to beat South Carolina, this would probably be the year that they could possibly do it. Not saying they will. They're probably going to be a 10-point underdog to South Carolina. I'm just saying that if it were going to happen, this would probably be the year that it would happen. So there you go. Georgia at 1, Florida at 2, Mizzou at 3, Kentucky at 4, Gamecocks at 5, Tennessee at 6, and Vanderbilt rounding out the top 7, the 7 for the SEC East. Now, I'm going to read some of these comments over here in the chat room. We'll do the West when we come back. Tom says Georgia will beat Clemson, go undefeated just to lose to Auburn and Bo Nix in true Kirby and Muschamp fashion. SEC Dog normally says a lot of silly things, but today he had said something very correct. Dan Mullen will most likely either quit or get fired this year. Dan Mullen's looking for an NFL job. I truly believe that. I don't think he wants to be at Florida anymore. It's just my opinion. Tom says he'd love to see Steve Spurrier back in Williams-Brice supporting Beamer at some point this season. I mean, he's like an ambassador for Florida, so I don't know how that's going to work out. Brock says, I could have run the ball for 20-plus yards a carry on Tennessee's defense. They are that bad. You are right. Mac Jones is not overrated, according to G. Bama Boy. He's a great QB. Bama fans don't think Mac is elite. He'll be fine in the NFL. Being fine in the NFL is fine, okay? Saying fine too much there. They're talking about the San Francisco 49ers drafting him number 3 overall, 2 overall, wherever it is the 49ers are. They're going to draft him there. I don't think he's that good. I really don't. Brock says every year announcers always say the team to look out for in the East is Kentucky. Kentucky, the only problem with Kentucky every year is they don't have a quarterback. If Kentucky got a quarterback, Kentucky would be a team that they're not going to win the East, but they would definitely be a problem. They really, really would. And Tom with another good point. With the number 3 pick, you're expected to be elite. You can't draft a backup at number 3. You can't draft a backup in the top 10. As simple as that. Look, a guy that didn't quite make it was the guy that played for the Jets, Sam Darnold. Didn't quite get everything they needed him to do. They didn't win any games. They ended up trading him. Trust me, if you don't lead your team to some wins and there's some hope there, they'll trade you. Although you'll just wash right out of the NFL. Bama Boy says, you pick Mac at number 3, that's a you problem. And SEC Dog, that's true. Kentucky has a good defense and an old, but nothing at QB. And OL, okay, but nothing at quarterback. Yeah, they can run the ball. They can do things. They end up having issues, though, when it comes to throwing the ball. And if you can't throw the ball in the SEC or against Power 5 schools, you're not going to do well. You're just not. And you wonder, with the transfer portal being the way that it is, why somebody hasn't. I know they got Joey Gatewood, and he looked pretty good in the Kentucky spring game. But this guy couldn't beat out Terry Wilson last year. Just throwing that out there. All right, my rankings for the West when we come back. Right here on the Rundown, you're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Kentucky's been awful at quarterback. I mean, they had, what was the guy that played wide? Lynn J. Bowden. But Bowden wasn't a quarterback. But he could throw the ball somewhat down the field. You know? He was a threat. Terry Wilson was terrible. His nickname was like Touchdown Terry Wilson. It should have been Terrible Terry Wilson. He was horrible. I think he was the worst quarterback in the SEC, in my opinion. He looked like every time he would snap the ball, he's looking around like it's the first time he's seen a set of boobs. Like, oh my God, those are boobs. His eyes are that big, like, yay. But in reality, he's like, oh, no. I'm serious. That's if you go back and look at any of Terry Wilson's stuff, which I guess I'm the only goober who goes back and watches old games, but Terry Wilson, that's how he looks. He's always looking like, yay, and then no, and it's just his eyes are so big, and he looks so happy, and then not so much. Who was the other guy that got Tim Couch? Tim Couch was good. Jared Lorenzen was really good. I mean, he was a big old boy, man. He could throw the ball. You know, the silly thing with South Carolina, though, is that especially this year, they're a bad matchup for Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's a bad matchup for them, in my opinion. South Carolina could beat them. Is the game at Kentucky? I can't remember the schedule. Pookie Wilson was, okay, I might buy that. Is that game at Kentucky? I can't remember. Brock, do you know? Can you help me with that? I don't know if they play at Kentucky or not. It may be. No, it was at Kentucky last year, so it's going to be here this year. So South Carolina has that chance to beat them. I like their chances better to beat Tennessee, though. Tennessee's, man, the Jeremy Pruitt stench on that team. Ugh. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate you, sir. Drinking Spark today. Well, welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world in the iHeartRadio app, where we're talking about how bad Terry Wilson was during the break there. You can follow along Fox Sports Radio 1400 Facebook page. You can watch the show and check out my fat pumpkin head. Anyway, my West rankings. These were harder than I thought. They really were. But my notes from the SEC West. I've got Alabama winning the West. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Can Bryce Young do the job at quarterback with new receivers and without Najee Harris? Because I tell you what, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne is well loved here in the state of South Carolina, but Najee Harris is an absolute just monster at running back. Okay. And not having him to lean on, I think, is something that I know Alabama's got a lot of great players. Okay. So please don't yell at me, Alabama fans. Don't tweet at me at Rob Sounds Good. Well, we've got 8 5-star running backs, Rob. You should know what you're talking. I mean, they're just 8 guys that are all 5-star guys. They're all going to go one right after another, right up into the to take his spot. I get it. I'm just saying they're not completely proven yet. All right. So I guess the phrase is going to be, who's going to be the next Najee Harris? And can Bryce Young do what Mac Jones did? Without Jalen Waddle, without Devontae Smith. There you go with Alabama. There's my questions for them. Texas A&M, the Aggies have a new quarterback. I mean, it seemed like the quarterback they had there before was like there for 800 years. Okay. But so they lose their quarterback and they have basically a new offensive line. And they have to carry and let's just be honest here. They are the bridesmaid of the West right now. They are the team that's just behind Alabama. Can they be the team this year that did what LSU did a couple of years ago, where they slap Alabama in the mouth and take the SEC West from them? Can they prove that last year wasn't a fluke? Can they prove that Jimbo Fisher does belong, even though he looks stupid when he runs around in his cowboy hat with his big belt buckle on to all the rubber chicken meetings, in the rubber chicken dinner meetings in the summertime? Okay. Is this a fluke team? They have to shed that moniker quick. LSU is looking to rebound from last year's historically bad defense. That's what I wrote about that. Their defense was so bad. It was just, they were completely out of position all season long. Coach Orgeron said he didn't even interview some of the assistants, which, why in the world would you say that? You want to talk about, I mean, look, you got to respect Coach O for winning the national title, and I do. But when he came out and said that live on the radio, yeah, I didn't even interview with some of those guys last year. What? Well, I mean, he might as well have hired me. I could have drawn some stuff up on a whiteboard, X's and O's and everything else. I could have gotten to the defense and said, hey, you guys are all world type stuff. Here's what we're going to do. I don't know much about football, but you pick one man and make sure that you stick with him in the secondary. We're just going to play straight man all the time. And with those athletes, they would have been a lot better off, seriously, than some of the stuff that defense was running last year. It was terrible. I should have gotten one of those $450,000 a year coaching jobs. I mean, Ed Orgeron gave them to people without even interviewing them. I got to get in on some of that stuff, man. Seriously. One other note on LSU. They played a lot of freshman quarterbacks last year. Those guys will have another year under their belts. They're all highly touted. Miles Brennan is the guy I think that will get the opportunity, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. But they do have some experience there with Brennan and the young man that went down into Florida and won that game down there. They've got some guys that can do something for you under center. Finishing fourth in the West, according to my little rankings here, I've got Ole Miss. And the one thing I wrote on this was defensive playmakers. Lane Kiffin has to show that he's a big boy now. And what I mean by that is we all know that you can coach offense, sir. We all get that. We all know that your offense is going to be absolutely great. You're going to average 14 points more. I think that's what they did last season. than they did the year before, whatever. We know that. But can you convince some people to come there that can play defense? That's basically what it boils down to. Ole Miss needs to hit the transfer portal hard. I don't know where they are on the scholarship stuff right now, but I'm confident that Lane Kiffin's going to put out an offense that's going to be in the top 5 of the SEC. Matt Corral, if you look at some of the talking heads, they think he's the best quarterback in the SEC right now. I didn't say it. That's what some people think. But Lane Kiffin needs to get on that transfer portal quickly and figure out, I need some guys that can stop the run and a couple of press corners. Now, I know everybody needs press corners. Everybody needs somebody to stop the run, but Ole Miss needs that, and they need it now because eventually, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but it's going to come down to, hey, Lane, you need a little more than just offense. We can't just keep running out there and beating teams 52-49. Can't do it. Yes, you played a great game with Alabama last year, scoring a lot of points. You were able to run your mouth to Nick Saban at the end of the game or what have you. But it's about winning. And can he do it? He's got to get some defensive playmakers. And right now, the transfer portal is the place to be. I've got Mississippi State at 5. And the reason I've got them at 5 is because if you look back at Mike Leach's teams, they've historically gotten better in the second season if they have a quarterback that comes back and plays in the system for the same for Leach. That air raid system, man, you look at guys like that did well at it in Texas Tech and stuff like that. Yeah, his air raid system, I mean, it's a gimmick. It really is. But I don't know how good their defense is going to be. It seemed like at the end of the season last year, they had like their best running back decide to leave. None of that bothers Mike Leach. He could care less. They're going to have a good offense, in my opinion. And I think that's why I've got them finishing where they are there. They could flip-flop with Ole Miss there, depending on how that goes. After Mississippi State, I've got Auburn. And the reason that I've got Auburn is a couple of things. One, I don't buy into Bo Nix. He seems like he is an arrogant person that he pounces a lot. When he doesn't get the throw that he wants, he pounces a lot. Now, I don't know how Coach Harsin is going to handle all this stuff. I don't know how he's going to do it. I do know that he got a bunch of guys that went to his staff that instead of coming from Boise State and bringing some of those coaches with you so that you could take some of the winning tradition you had at Boise State, because let's be honest, Boise State was the king of the Mountain West. He did a wonderful job up there. Let's just throw that out there. Why not bring some of those coaches with you? You couldn't convince any of those guys to come with you to the SEC, and you've got to go and get Mike Bobo, who is basically a 2-time failure. 3-time failure, to be completely honest with you. That's who you've got running your offense. That's the best that you can do. Maybe he was a good coach up there, but it was an insulated system. I don't know. He wasn't a good enough recruiter to bring any of those coaches with him. And that's why I've got Auburn behind the Mississippi schools. Now, they could make me look stupid. Bo Nix could come out and they could have like a Heisman-type season from him. I'm just saying. But my tea leaves that I'm spinning here say I don't believe it until I see it. And finally, you have to put somebody at last. The reason that Arkansas is last and Auburn is ahead of them is because I think Tank Bigsby is going to be probably one of the better running backs in the SEC. And I think that if they hand him the ball a good bit, he could have a year like Kevin Harris had last year. Bigsby is that good of a running back, in my opinion. But with Arkansas, it comes down to KJ Jefferson. He's the key there. If he plays well, Arkansas is going to make me look stupid. Simple as that. They could finish anywhere from dead last to third. They really could. They really, really could. And I'm not sure if I'm buying into Sam Pittman. They lost Coach Stepp, who ended up coming here. They lost their best wide receiver. He went to Oklahoma. So, yeah, you lose some of that. All right. I'm not sure I completely buy into what he's trying to do there. They don't have Felipe Franks anymore, but they really like KJ Jefferson a lot. And if you watch KJ Jefferson play in the Arkansas spring game, he looks like he could be a man's man. He really does. But he's the key. If he plays well, Arkansas won't finish last. If he doesn't, Arkansas will finish last. They'll finish 3-9, and everybody will be yes, sir, and Sam Pittman right on out of town. I don't think they'll fire him, but they'll be like, oh, what are we doing? What are we doing? So Brandon says Bigsby's at Auburn. Yes, I said I know he's at Auburn. That's why I have Auburn ranked above Arkansas, because he plays at Auburn. I think Brandon's confused. Bigsby at Auburn is why I have them over Arkansas. I like the idea of what Bigsby can do better than I like what KJ Jefferson can do. I think Brandon's confused there a little bit. All right, so if you want to respond to my post-spring top 25 there for the SEC, have at it. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. I've got a huge trade rumor in my hand here involving a franchise quarterback. We'll talk when we come back. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I like Bixby a lot. Yeah, Brandon, I was saying that the reason Auburn is ahead of him is because they have Bixby. That's why. Bixby wasn't on that team, Auburn would be like a 2-win team. I don't think Auburn's going to be worth a damn. They're going to be like a plate full of, I don't know what I can say when I'm in, I don't want to say anything about go over the air. They're going to be a plate full of something. Let's just leave it at that. Oh, I've got the Julio Jones story here too. Ooh, and I've got something on the Jaguars. I've got 3 stories here. Yeah, plain non-buttered noodles. There you go. Thank you, G Bama boy. I wanted to say something vile and I can't. I think he's going to use them sort of like he did Harris last year. You can make that argument. I think they're going to run Bigsby to death. Worse than hot dog water. Yes, sir, Jimmy. That Tennessee defense looked bad. I mean, they looked out of position a lot. I don't know. Maybe your quarterback's good. Who knows? At this juncture, man, I love springtime because there's hope with everyone. I really believe that. But on the other hand, it's like, Final segment of the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Thanks for checking us out today. This is all NFL draft type stuff, all right? Players moving around, etc. Here we go. The Jaguars owner said, what was it that was interesting here? And I've got Shad Khan said that the number 1 overall selection will define his franchise for a long time. And he says, make no mistake about it, according to several different insiders here, the reason Urban Meyer is coaching Jacksonville Jaguars and not the Texas Longhorns is because of Trevor Lawrence. He's coveted Trevor Lawrence for the last few years, dating back to watching him at Clemson in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So it's amazing how one thing can go, one player can make a difference in everything. Think about that. If the dominoes had flipped over, you could have had, hey, maybe another season of Steve Sarkisian at Alabama. You could end up with Urban Meyer at Texas. So there's that. That's interesting. That the big reason that he came to the Jaguars is simply because of Trevor Lawrence. Boy, Trevor Lawrence is jumping into some shoes there, man. He better get it right quick. Trade speculation swirling for Julio Jones. This is an interesting set here. According to several different reports, including Ian Rappaport from NFL Network, Jones, the 32-year-old, five-time All-Pro and 7-time Pro Bowler, is still playing at an elite level, but the Falcons have received calls from teams inquiring about trading for him. A trade could not happen due to cap reasons before June 1st, but teams know about Atlanta's cap situation and they're calling. He's 32. I don't know how much longer he's going to be where he's at, but there are teams that could use Julio Jones, who I still think is a top 10 wide receiver. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there, though. The Falcons do have the number 4 overall pick in the draft. You want to make themselves better. I think that they should take Kyle Pitts, in my opinion. If they take Kyle Pitts, then they've got some interesting stuff there with Julio Jones on one side. I know Falcon fans are thinking, hey, man, we should get rid of Matt Ryan. Ryan's still a pretty good quarterback. Just saying. Final story of the day. And this was, someone sent me this. Oh, this is from Bucky Brooks, who's an NFL Network analyst. Baltimore Ravens could part ways with Lamar Jackson in a radical move during the 2021 draft. Here is what Bucky Brooks said. I just wonder about a scenario if Justin Fields happens to fall low enough where he's within the range if the Baltimore Ravens decide to really go all in on this Army approach, meaning they take a collegiate approach to the quarterback position, they cash in on a blue chip, they take Justin Fields, and then maybe they operate like a college team. One quarterback graduates, the other quarterback steps into a starter's role. I don't know about that. I do think that Lamar Jackson, they had to kind of tailor the offense to him. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but if we're going just on the arm of Lamar Jackson, sure I'm buying what he's doing there. Not sure I'm buying that at all. But interesting. Another note from Brooks. You now have the opportunity to keep a starting quarterback potentially on a young deal, build up the rest of the assets, play smash mouth football the way they play, and continue to build a better team around that quarterback. It's something to think about. Think about that. Could they give up Lamar Jackson to get Justin Fields? I don't know how that's going to happen. They have 2 first-round picks, though, number 27 and number 31. Can they maneuver those 2 picks together and do something with it? We shall see. We shall see. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Got a couple minutes before we get out of here this afternoon. We're going to talk more and more about the draft this week. Someone said, Pitts is a good pick. Yeah, I think that Kyle Pitts is, it's not taking anything away from Trevor Lawrence. Being a quarterback in the NFL is hard. I think that Kyle Pitts is the guy that's going to come in, and if he doesn't get injured, he is just a man-child out there. I think he's the safest pick in the draft. I really do. You could, with quarterbacks, man, you can look at quarterbacks from the past and figure out that, hey, maybe these people don't know what they're talking about. This quarterback looks good. I think of Mitch Trubisky. That's the first quarterback I think of, and how much the Chicago Bears put into him. And then all of a sudden, not so much. Not so much. I think it's really hard to evaluate and get a quarterback on the pro level, but with Kyle Pitts at tight end, I think he's been coached up by Dan Mullen down there with that offense. And I think that wherever he goes, it's going to be a solid pick for whoever it gets. G-Bama Boy says, Pitts, Trevor, and Micah Parson are the safest picks. Yeah. Sewell's a good pick too. But you cannot go wrong with Kyle Pitts, period. So we'll talk about that throughout the week. By the way, Coach Eric Wilson joins us tomorrow. We'll wrap up the Gamecock spring stuff and what exactly goes on during summer workouts. Coach Eric Wilson knows. So we'll talk about that and how teams can get better during the summer. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow here on the Rundown. Be sure to check us out. What do we got on Wednesday? Former Clemson linebacker and all-pro, was on the all-decade team in the 90s. Lavon Kirkland joins us. He's going to tell us the story of draft night. What happened the night that he got drafted into the NFL, and we'll get his thoughts on some of the players that are out there. I'm going to ask him about J.C. Horn, who I think is going to be picked really, really high. So we'll have that for you on Wednesday. Tyler Crowder on Thursday, and a complete draft recap of the first round on Friday. My name is Rob Sanders. Don't forget, Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk is next.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Yes, you can follow him on Twitter at Clemson Sports. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Be sure to follow me there. Podcast is up at 5 o'clock. And we'll be back at it tomorrow right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Appreciate you guys, man. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks a lot, fellas. You guys take care. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Got an actual coach coming in tomorrow. That's going to be fun.